Hey, it's Sandra Pike from LePage Atlantic and the Pike Group. Well, I am so excited for today. We have a great discussion planned, and we're going to talk about the market and what changes we're seeing, what changes we're not seeing, and maybe where we're headed to. But first, I'm going to get the panelists to introduce themselves, what their role is, and what brokerage they're at. And Adam, we'll start with you first.
I'm Adam Hennigar, the owner and broker of Sutton Group Professional Realty.
Linda?
Linda Smardon, co-owner and broker of Exit Realty Metro.
And Miss Pam?
My name is Pam Cherington. I'm the owner and the broker of Red Door Realty.
And last but not least, Mr. Marc.
Hey there, folks. Marc Doucette here, managing associate broker with LePage Atlantic, working out of our Halifax and Dartmouth area here.
Awesome. So everybody is talking about the market. You know, some people are saying that it's slowing down. Yet we had a property the other day that just went 400,000 over asking. Linda, you know, what are you seeing in your office? Because you have a lot of agents there as well. You know, what's been happening? What's the feedback?
It's mixed. Basically, what we're seeing a little bit of it, and that's right across the board, I think. There are pockets, and quite a few of them, where you're getting to the 5 days and you don't have that offer, or there's not an offer that the seller is satisfied with. The next thing you know, it's going back to the market, sometimes at an increased price, depending on the strategy, the original pricing strategy, and it really does come down to pricing strategy. What the newer realtors in our office have struggled with and are starting to get a handle on is pricing strategy. Basically is very unique to each individual realtor and how they advise their clients. So basically what they have determined and we've talked about is when you're working with buyers right now, just ignore the price, the list price. What you really need to do is look at the list price, but look at the sales price in the region. So house number one and house number two might be priced $100,000 different, but the sale prices are some consistency. So that's going to drive your offer, not what somebody put on a price, because some realtors are pricing it with, in conversation with their clients, close to what they expected to sell for, and some are still pricing it $200,000 or $300,000 less than what they sell for. So list price right now, it is strategy. Everybody has a different strategy, but it's not like the old days where, list price was here and you'd expect it to sell here. So you're going to get 400,000 over, you're going to get 50,000 over, you're going to get list price, maybe a little bit less than list price. It really depends on the original pricing strategy. That's what we're finding.
So Pam, do you think, based on, everybody is struggling and everybody has a different way of listing a house. So if that last house in, Baby Split in Sackville sold for 500, should I not be listing, the next house that's in Sackville at 500,000 as well? Is it time to stop with the bidding wars, or do we continue?
Well, in my opinion, it would be time to stop with the bidding wars. I mean, we've got enough of a foundation out there, of sales out there to know where it's probably going to go. I mean, we're not going to go back to where we were even last year type of thing. I mean, I think we already have an increased value and a respect for that value. But, so for instance, I just listed a house on Poplar Street for $750,000, and my strategy is that, I was hoping to get somewhere around there, or of course, maybe a little bit more, but whatever. 2 other houses come on that are better, like a lot better. One is 775. And I'm like, oh my God, that's going to go over $1 million. That's going to confuse everybody who's looking at those houses this weekend and trying to feel their value and what it is. So his strategy is completely different than my strategy, and we're 1 street apart. So we will see.
Yeah. So Adam, we would have had a discussion about blind bidding, and based on that home that just sold in Hubley, was there, or could there have been a big disparity between, the house went $400,000 over asking. I mean, could the next offer only have been 150 over asking? So if we had the open bidding, would that have been different, or would you recommend that in our market?
Well, it's hard to say. I think open bidding might help control the wild swings. So the winning bid is not going to be $100,000 higher than the next highest bid. But the flip side is we've all got caught up in auctions and the excitement of an auction and frenzy of an auction. And I think, you know, the looking at all of our internal sales, the wild prices do not account for a large segment of the market. Usually there are 2 or 3 offers incredibly close together. So for the vast majority of the market, if you're dealing with 2 or 3 buyers that are really, really close, I think open bidding might actually drive the price higher, not control it. So it might prevent the wild highball offers, but the average price I think might see even more upward pressure.
So Marc, you're always looking at the stats at the office, and which I think is great. I think what are we up to right now? The average time on market, is it 16 days?
It depends how you're pulling it, but yeah, it's around 16 days, and it does feel like there's a little bit of a shift happening recently. I mean, things are now starting to bring on as many properties in a month and not quite as many sales, so that moves the listing inventory in the right direction. Finally starting to see some properties come to market and not necessarily have competing offers on them. And it was interesting, last week we pulled a stat looking at how many price changes happened by month. So in April, it was really interesting. We've had quadruple the amount of price changes that we did a month before. And so probably about 115 price changes, but even more interesting, I think Linda mentioned it, 50 of those were in the upward direction. So we just never seen that before, where, you know, 115 people came to market, decided to change the price, and then said, "Ooh, actually, I'm going to raise the price because there's no way I'm selling it for what I listed it for." So what an interesting market that we're in now. But definitely feels like there's a little bit of a shift happening to maybe more somewhat. I want to use the word balanced because we're very ways off from that, but a little bit more.
But if you look at when I look at the stats from the other day, what we sold year to date now is a reflection of what was year to date in 2019.
If I could weigh in on Marc's point, I was talking, we had a little bit of mastermind, and we were looking the other day, and I was just looking at 1-day price changes, and there were 5 and 7 and 5 were increased. So today I went on and said, okay, look at 7 and 14 days. So in the last 7 days in the Halifax region, in the province, there were 40 price changes. 21 up, 17 down, and 2 were just clearly corrections because prices were weird and they fixed them. But if you go 14 days, then it's only 27 up, and it's 40 down and 3. So of the 27 up in the last 14 days, 21 of them were in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
So looking even a month back and looking at what happened in April really isn't reflective of what's going on today. And the other thing I looked at was in the Halifax region, May 1st to 13th, 484 new listings, input date, right? 1st to 13th of May last year, 301. Now that is not consistent with what's happened any other month. And I don't even know if it's going to carry on to the end of May. So, but I looked at April and said, April's not telling me the story of what's going on today. So I'm going tighter. I'm going just in the last 2 weeks. So that's where I kind of looked at it and said, this is, to quote Marc, interesting.
If I can chime in there too, I mean, that is the challenge of any changing market, is it does create confusion. That you're looking at one property and it has 12 competing offers, and then an almost identical property is listed next door and only has 2 competing offers, and nobody knows why. And there's nothing fundamentally different between them. It's just the confusion of the market. And in my experience, looking at other changes we've gone through, the buyers adjust to the changes much quicker than sellers. Buyers adjust in a couple of weeks. Sellers can sometimes take 6 months to realize the market has shifted. So that does create a gap between the buyer and seller expectations, which does create challenges. On the pricing side, it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see by the end of the year return to normalish pricing strategies where the list price does reflect what the seller is expecting to get. But right now, buyers have an expectation that the list price is $100,000 to $200,000 low. That they look at a listing and say, oh, it's listed at 400, I can't afford 5. And so the challenge is perhaps for a listing agent, when you're listing at 4 and you want 4, and 4 is your anticipated sale price, how do we communicate that to buyers that the list price of 4 is what we're actually expecting to get? We're not expecting 5, and we don't want to scare them off. So we're going through a period of turmoil, and I think it will stabilize by the end of the summer. But right now, yeah, it's going to be challenging.
Pam, what are you seeing in your brokerage, the one that's outside of HRM? Are you experiencing anything different?
They are just flat out, like there doesn't seem to be any difference at all. The hiccup with the tax things sort of created more conversations with everybody, but it really didn't do anything to the sales. Everybody who was in the Pike is still in the Pike.
Oh, good. So if we look at, where people were coming from, let's say in 2021, so we had 2 years of military moves who would have come here last year. We had interprovincial migration, from other parts of Canada. We even had, people even from the States coming here because we had such amazing COVID numbers. And, then we had, people who were from here just moving back home. So we don't have that this year. So, and immigration hasn't taken off yet, but where are these buyers coming from? Like, what are you seeing on your buyer designated brokerage agreements in the office, Linda?
That depends on how far into 2022 you're talking. Because earlier, I would say as much as 2.5 months ago, so still in 2022, we still had, it was a resurgence of the out-of-town buyer. It was really a resurgence of it. We had a massive amount of out-of-town buyers. We had a lot of out-of-town investors as well. I will say the detransfer tax for this, not the big investor, but in our case, for the small investor, we saw some of them, a couple of our people do a lot of investors, quickly dropped off. They weren't happy. Well, definitely weren't going to pay the taxes, but they weren't even still thrilled with the detransfer tax. And there's some of them that said, even with that, that was enough to say, I don't know. Now, the bigger investors, the people buying apartment buildings, it hasn't affected them. But the people that are buying 1 or 2 small properties here, that are buying a little bit right across Canada, some of those just said, I think we're going to wait and see what goes.
Marc, what are we seeing at our office, let's say in the past 2 weeks? Because I would say 2 to 3 weeks is the changes that I'm seeing drastically. What would you say that's happening in the office where, if you notice the buyer brokerage agreements, where are they coming from?
Well, for sure, we're still having people come from out of town to purchase here. Interprovincial Ontario buyers coming in is still a thing. Anecdotally talking to agents, they are just starting now to really feel like the prices are catching up. So some of the delta between, you sell your house in Mississauga and you come here and there's such a big gap, and that's really starting to close with the way things are appreciating. So we've had some people that have kind of cooled off on what they were looking for there. We haven't shown it in the numbers yet, but anecdotally talking to lots of agents, they have had a number of their, a few of their Ontario folks deselect, but still lots of activity though. Unbelievable how many over the pandemic here. Like we did track it for 1 month, and we're blown away. We had 25% of the sales in that month of our properties. 25% of them were from other provinces, which I don't think we've ever had anything close to that before. I don't know if anybody else here tracks those numbers or pulls them, but.
I had a property listed last week. I would have had 18 offers and only one of them was from out of town. What are you seeing in your office, Adam?
Well, the same kind of shift. And I think statistically, the city's numbers, there's a 17,000 unit shortage right now. And those are people that have moved to HRM over the last 5 or 6 years. And are still looking for their desired living accommodation. So it's not that they're homeless. They've found, well, there is an increasing homeless problem, but these are people that have found accommodations but are still looking to upgrade to what they desire. So a lot of the demand is still just sitting there in those people. Some have gotten out of the market, or given up or being priced out with the interest rate changes or things like that. Most of them are still there. And I think we are seeing more of them, Nova Scotians that have been trying for a year or two to buy. They're seeing more opportunities and they're winning more offers now too. So, there's a slight decrease in Ontario. Well, I shouldn't say Ontario, inter-provincial buyers. Really what I'm seeing is the local buyers are finally getting opportunities to buy.
Pam, we're seeing every day that there is an increase of homes that are being put to market. Do you anticipate it slowing down at all? Like, again, I mean, you can speak of two markets, or do you still just think we're going to be crazy? And if you feel that we're still going to be crazy, how long do you think we're going to be like that?
Well, I think we're going to carry out the year pretty much with the same energy that we're sort of feeling now. We have the pockets of places that, don't get it. And then the ones that, there seems to be a lineup, but we're also receiving offers when above list, when they're the only offer on the table. I mean, there's sellers out there saying, take this, I'll give you an extra 50 grand. I'll give you an extra 25 grand. So that's taking place when they're not even competing, and they're giving more than list price. But I don't see any change. No, I think we're really going to take this right to 2023. And I don't even know what's going to happen next year. I think it's just going to be more of the same, maybe on a different bit of a level. But, I mean, right now everybody says, why is everybody listing their house? Well, we always listed the houses at this time of year. I mean, we're a little bit late, but that's, people coming to the forefront, and everybody wants their house. So people who heard that there was this crazy market out there came to the market even sooner than they thought.
Yeah, I think, nationally, Canada, the sales are expected to cool off by year end and reach a balanced territory, not a crash, not a burst bubble, not any kind of real slowdown, but balanced territory. I think our 17,000 unit shortage is really going to keep us in a strong seller's market. We are going to see a slowdown in our market, but it's going to be a slowdown from the absolute peak highs that none of us could ever believe we've ever seen before, to just a really, really hot seller's market like we had in 2006. And for those around in 2006, I mean, we were seeing 10-15% price growth a year. The top 25 to 50, the top 25% of homes we're seeing strong competing offers. And I think the average market time was 30 to 45 days. Historically, that's still an incredibly strong market. And I think that's where we're heading. It is technically a slowdown, but it's nowhere near balanced territory, and certainly not even remotely close to a crash. And I think that strong market is going to last for a minimum of 3 years, minimum.
Has anybody been tracking at your offices deals that have been terminating? I will, based on my own experience between 2021 and let's say up to the end of April, I had very few deals that would have terminated. And just the past 2 weeks, I had 3. I've never seen that before. I'm like, I was surprised. Has anybody
on what? On the offer,
like,
or they didn't close?
No, terminated on the offer, like financing or some other thing. I've never had any deals terminate. Maybe like 1 or 2, like for a year and a half, but I had 3 in the past like 2 weeks. Is anybody tracking that?
Not tracking it, but I've seen the exact same spike. And I think again, it's a symptom of a changing market. Is typical. Some of it is buyers getting cold feet that they're afraid they're overpaying. But I think a lot of it is that gap between buyer expectations and seller expectations. The buyers are rightly looking at major issues now. For example, property I was just talking to an agent about this morning that needs a new furnace. The furnace is in need of replacement completely. Low amperage running into the house, so you can't upgrade to a heat pump or anything like that without upgrading the electrical, and the sewage lateral line, which is a lengthy one running around the yard, needs replacement and goes under a deck. So the real expense of that is probably going to be $20,000 to $30,000. And the seller's reaction to even the discussion of it was of utter disbelief. And how dare the buyer even bring this up? That's where I think the gap between seller expectations and buyer expectations are going to result in terminations for a little while. That buyers are going to start expecting real issues to be addressed in a real way, while sellers might still refuse that. But again, I think we'll close that gap fairly quickly with people learning and adjusting, and then we'll see a drop in the number of terminations down to normal levels again.
The other thing I think is playing part in this, and Pam has got a good point about our market being late, because up to recently we were behind on new listings. And I said right now, in the first 13 days of May, we've gone from with 484, I think, this year. First 13 days of May last year was 301 in the Halifax region. So that's a significant increase. So what's happening with some buyers, when I'm hearing anecdotally, when we're having the discussions in our office, and I'm like Adam, they're coming to me and talking about it, is the buyers always have one eye on the market. So when 4 other houses that come up look interesting to them, and this house doesn't meet their expectation on inspection, and they think they paid a top dollar and there's an issue, before they had nowhere to go. Now they have somewhere to go. Now they have, for instance, you take a quick look at area 31, and at the 440, I think there's like 5 places listed at 449,000. So 450,000. So, well, if I don't get this one, I could go that one, or that one. So that's something we haven't had to deal with for a while. We haven't had to deal with, buyers have just, taken, like all hot markets, all seller markets, buyers suck it up and do what they need to do to get in a house. And now there are options. And realtors are saying to me, I remember one posting on our internal Facebook group, holy mackerel, I've got 5 houses to show my buyers today. Uncharted territory. So there you go.
Yep. I would have said before before we had COVID, that Halifax buyers, there was never a sense of any urgency because there were so many homes to choose from, and now we have over 400 that are listed compared to what we had in January and February. Like we only had like 100 and change. So the housing prices increased last year, Marc, by 26%, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
So could we increase this year by 26%? I mean, we talk about affordable housing and who knows what that benchmark is now, but how long are we going to see prices go up? Like, what are we anticipating for this year? Do you know?
LePage is forecasting it to be a little bit more tempered than that. Still a double-digit appreciation, but more like 12% rather than like 26%. So kind of feels like it's it's all relative, right? You talk about the market cooling off, and that's like looking at last year. But if you look back, like 2019, that felt like a pretty good year while it was happening, right? So it's all relative. You're looking at just what happened in the last month here. Of the 623 sales, 577 were still above the list price. So for whatever that's worth, we're still in this very still heated low inventory market, but probably we're looking for it to just the appreciation to happen a little bit less. And of course, as I already mentioned, that'll be much higher in some areas that are still adjusting up, and then some others will feel downright balanced, right? So it'll be kind of spread across all of our Halifax region.
And what would be the most profitable area? I know we talked about Harrietsfield doing really well. What would be the best market right now? I know, it's wild, it's great. What would be the best market right now for a seller? Like what area of town is it?
It was so interesting to see. We kind of tracked that over the last couple of years here, and some of the markets that were always so busy and so competitive, the north end, the west side, all the areas downtown that were like really high appreciation and competitive compared to everywhere else, over the last couple of years, they weren't the top 5, right? It was like all the areas in Dartmouth, Sackville, where I'm at Beaverbank, all of a sudden very high appreciation, up to like 30% and more year over year. Harrietsfield, so kind of spread out. Seems to be quite a bit based on affordability. Those homes that are still somewhat affordable, there's still seems to be a lot of competition around them. But then you talk to agents and they're shocked when they see homes go on and there's only one offer. And then in another area, they're so shocked again to see a bunch come on. It seems to be very challenging right now to guess at how that's gonna come about.
I've been cautioning my sellers, upcoming sellers, like market's slowing down. And then boom, again, that house last week, 400,000 over asking. And it's just, I feel that that's always a moving target. And, it's paying attention to the stats. And, Adam, if there was one thing that you had to tell a buyer right now, what would that be?
Oh, God. To tell a buyer, wow. I guess my number one thing would be it is still a safe, good time to buy, that they can trust this market, they can trust the price they're paying, the home they're buying, that they don't need to worry about a crash or a recession, that we do have stability in our future, and it is safe to buy and they can be comfortable buying.
Pam, you talked about different strategies for pricing a home. What would you tell your seller now?
Well, I guess, you try to manage their expectations, as they say. So you give the different scenarios, how do you want to play it? We haven't even talked about, there's houses that stay on the market and then still sell over list 35, 45 days later, have multiple offers. They just sort of plug along. And then the next thing you know, there's more than one buyer, right? So I describe the different scenarios, and it's what they're up for. A lot of them need to know that it's not for the faint of heart by any stretch of the imagination. When you have these people moving out for a week, no showings, you're just like, oh my God. But what we haven't touched upon is there was 2 properties, I think it was last week, that nobody showed up to close. Yeah. And they came back on the market. Yeah, there was 2 on Tower Road that the buyers didn't show up and they came back to market. So that can happen now too. They were solid deals and there was nobody there at close.
Wow. So
Yeah.
the seller gets the deposit, hopefully.
Well, I don't know how that unfolded, but yeah, there was 2 properties last week. Yeah.
Yeah, there would be legal repercussions, but I don't think we'll leave that to the lawyers, in my opinion.
Yeah. Are we seeing that at Royal LePage, Marc?
Not
Well,
that I
one
know.
was a Royal LePage listing.
Or was it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not as a trend that we haven't had a large number of people just not close on properties.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Linda, go ahead, sorry.
And that happens in every market. There's always the occasional failure to close on the buyer or seller's part. I don't think I'd agree with Marc. It's not a trend right now. Every year there's always a few.
Linda, you have some newer agents at the office. How are you educating them when they're going out with their buyer clients? What is the one piece of advice that you're giving them?
I tell them that their expertise and their market knowledge and understanding that every listing they show, they have to understand what the market is doing, what the sale price is doing. You can't count on the list price. And I am pounding that in their head. And so you're going to have to get really good at market analysis and really good at reading the market, because to both Pam, you said it, there is data out there now. If you look at sale prices, if you look at, in most areas, there's enough data to give you a pretty good guesstimate where they're going. And the other thing I talk about is understanding how to work with time adjustments. So if there has nothing been sold recently, local close areas, where else is your buyer looking? And also, if there's one that sold a month ago, what's the market done between now and then? Because that's going to inform, the possibility of winning. So understanding statistics and understanding their market right now is probably one of the strongest skills. Do not go by the seat of your pants. You have to sit down, get in front of that computer and put some time in.
And
in my very gentle way, that's how I put it.
You're very gentle. And how about yourself, Marc? What advice are you giving to inexperienced agents who haven't been in this type of market? What advice are you giving to them?
Been amazing seeing some of the newer agents get into what it's been a very treacherous market, and they've done pretty good for themselves. They get out there and hustled and worked really hard. and they have all that enthusiasm for a lot of our experienced agents that, you know, it's been a very challenging market here because the pace it puts on, the pressure puts on their family lives. You're trying to have your Sunday dinner and they're getting the phone call that, oh yeah, actually we are going to look at those offers. Everyone rushes out to go and do it. So we've been trying to encourage our people to just, you know, take a big deep breath, whether they're new or experienced, and just try to maintain some sense of balance, because as a whole, it's a good market for us to be in. Sales are still happening, but it's very, very brisk, and try to keep some kind of control over their time seems to be a challenge than ever. So half the battle doesn't seem to be encouraging them to get out there and sell. It's more about just keeping centered and showing up as the best version of themselves every day.
Very, very important. And I have one more question that I forgot to talk about. So typically, I would say since the pandemic, most of us were listing a property and holding offers for a period of days. And I know now that in the past 3 weeks, I've made the switch that I will look at early offers. Is anybody doing that, or have you seen a switch with listing agents in your offices? Anybody can answer this one?
I would say to more point to that, we have quite a few of our agents not even holding offers anymore, just going back to market the old fashioned way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had same experience. You know, some are not holding offers at all. Some listings, you know, if they've been on the market for more than a week, we are, you know, counseling our agents on going back to traditional marketing with an expectation of 30 to 45 days to sell. The only properties that I think I would hold offers on would be ones that I'm extremely confident are in high demand, and that strategy is going to work. But I don't think that represents the majority of the market right now.
And yourself, Pam?
Yeah, you know, you switch pretty quick. You go to 4 days, then you go to 3 days, then you go to 24 hours, no, 48 hours, then you go to 24 hours, and then you say, I'll take whatever you got.
I know, and are you seeing that as well, Marc?
Oh, for sure. I mean, as we've seen all these price changes, probably every one of those probably had it in their write-up, right, that they were going to hold into. And listen, when the market was heating up, holding offers was a great way to give the property time and agents time to see it. And now it still is appropriate sometimes. What we've really asked our agents is only do that if you're able to commit to that and get it in writing, and that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Because buyers and other agents, of course, like everyone, is very upset when they get that phone call to say, oh yeah, I know we said we were going to wait, but now we're not going to wait. So, and that just is so disruptive. So more and more agents I've seen buying, okay, maybe we're not going to do that. Maybe we'll just, you know, maybe we'll just hold off on holding offers and just deal with them as they come in. Unless it's, like you said, going to be very, very surefire thing. It's going to be super competitive.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Great topic for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.